Welcome back. This time, chapter 16. Much like chapter 8, this is a massive chapter size-wise, map-wise, but in terms of actual content, there's not a whole lot here. So this video is really long, 40-something minutes, 45-ish minutes, and trust me, I did the best I could to shave time off of that. The raw footage was about 55 minutes long, so I shaved roughly 10 minutes of raw footage off of this, and I probably could have shaved a little bit more, but at that point, you know, why even upload a video in the first place? Why not just upload some blog or text posts about how much I did in the map? So yeah, you're gonna have to suffer through this with me. There's some interesting parts to it though. It's unlike chapter 8, there's some side objectives to do, there's some interesting gimmicks and mechanics about it. So it's not just all size and no meat. Speaking of interesting mechanics, the promoted general that just moved there up the top left, his name is Douglas. Forgive me if I call him Dwessel or Dessel. I don't know how you pronounce it. The guy from FE8. You know that armor cav. What are they called? Great Knights. Yeah, the pre-promoted Great Knight you get in FE8. I don't know why. Every time I see Douglas in this game, I just immediately think of Dwessel. I don't know why. So forgive me if I call him that at some point. It's not intentional, and that's just so you know who I'm talking about. But speaking of him, he starts out as an enemy, and you cannot recruit him this map. I think you can talk to him with Roy or somebody else in your army, maybe like Percival or Cecilia, considering he's got a relationship with those two. But you can't recruit him, and that really sucks because he has to be alive by the end of the chapter in order to get the next Gaiden chapter. And as you should know already, FE6 Gaiden chapters are essential to get if you want the best ending to the game, if you want the true ending, because every single Gaiden chapter has a legendary weapon locked behind it. And this is actually the most frustrating part of the map, at least for me, because this guy moves decently fast, and I was struggling to come up with a good strategy for not killing him. Not killing an enemy was the hardest part of the whole map. At one point, during my first few attempts of this map, I had all my units bunched up in the middle, in that zigzag corridor, and because there's a locked set of doors at the end of it, Dwessel's, I just did it, I just called him Dwessel. Douglas's AI will send him all the way around to the path where Lance currently is to try to get you, because that's the only open route for him to take. So at one point my plan was to have all my units just wait in that zigzag corridor until Douglas was all the way around and behind me, so I could just move forward and not worry about him all that much. That didn't happen. Instead, I did a pseudo version of that strategy where I had some units wait in the middle to progress forward at some point, and I sent a little vanguard off to the right of Lance, Sue, Milady, and Saul for healing. I send Lance because Lance's job this entire map is basically just going to be to distract Douglas. I almost called him Dwessel again. That's his entire job. Lance with a sword does 1 damage to Douglas, I believe. Level up from Wolt here, by the way. HP, skill speed, luck, fantastic. He got defense. He got that exact same level up, except he also got defense last time I played this map, which is, you know, it's a shame. Still no strength, but you know, I can't complain about that level up too much. As I was saying, Lance's job is going to be to distract Douglas the entire time. He basically does no damage. I am kind of on a time limit because he does 2 damage per turn, but Douglas has like 40 something health, so I have a lot of time to work with basically. And at some point my iron sword will break and I'll have to use an iron lance anyway, which will absolutely not do any damage whatsoever. I sent Sue up this way because she has a longbow, and I was hoping she could deal with that bolting mage you can see cordoned off right to the right of where Lance is fighting right now. But unfortunately, Sue does not want around, and it ends up just being easier to have Milady soak those bolting hits until he's out of bolting, and then be done with it. And of course, Saul is just there for healing. I should have sent Roy this way as well, because there's another character on this map that's recruitable named Hugh. He's an enemy mage who also comes down the right, except he gets there much quicker than Douglas ever will, because he's much closer and also not an armor unit. I think he just moved right there. And while I normally wouldn't bother recruiting this guy, especially in a run like this where I'm not actually going to be able to use him, he does come with the member card, which means he's the only way, recruiting him or stealing it from him is the only way to access secret shops. Now, I still haven't decided if I'm going to ever use a secret shop. I don't know if I want to. But just having the option, I think, is pretty valuable. So I decided to recruit this guy for that purpose. Normally I would probably just steal the card from him, but I don't have any thieves that I'm allowed to use. So that's not really an option for me. Speaking of not really an option, Lilina just got silenced, so healing is not really an option for me here. The plan was to just progress ahead and get my units through this corridor, but now that they can't be healed for however long it takes for Lilina to not be silenced anymore, I can't do that. I basically just have to have some of my high HP units soak the purge hits, which I guess is useful in its own way, and then go through the tunnel, because there's just, I don't trust that they'll all be able to live otherwise. Yeah, if that guy does that much damage to Marcus, then there's no way my entire squad's getting through that tunnel alive. Marcus has like 10 res, I think. Luckily this guy doesn't hit his silence. I imagine the chance for these guys to hit their silence is pretty low. On my first ever playthrough of this game, I had a Cecilia get 3% silenced on this map. So I basically just have to not fear the silence. I'm just going to have to hope it doesn't hit. I imagine the hit rates are not very good, although without animations on I can't check. But if Cecilia was getting 3%, then I imagine the chance of this guy's silence actually hitting Saul or Lilina was pretty goddamn low. Don't know what it would have been for Lilina, considering she got hit. But I'm imagining nothing higher than 30 or so, 30%. Can't kill this guy in one row with Lance, unfortunately. But whatever, what can you do? I'll just do some damage with the most reliable weapon I have, which is the iron sword. And this guy's almost out of boltings, one more, and then Milady can move. At this point, I've already started to move Roy back upon realizing my mistake, and he will meet up with Hugh shortly. As for right now, I have to leave Marcus out of range of that purge tome, because otherwise he will just die. Or well, I don't know if he actually would have died that turn, but he would have come close, and I wasn't going to risk it. Or do math, apparently, because that's too hard. Instead, I'll just get Garret to soak it. Garret, who has really poor resistance, but just a bucket load of HP, can soak these purge hits like they're basically nothing. I think he could take 2 more without dying, and that's what he will do. He'll take at least 1 more. I know that much. Finally get rid of this bishop here. Shame I couldn't get rid of him before he used all his silences, but what can you do? And now we'll move Roy over. Kinda hard to... This map is just about not killing the recruitable units for me. This map would have been so easy if you were allowed to just kill everything that moved, but unfortunately all the recruitable units on this map are enemies and they try to kill you, and they're all so bad that unless you're actively trying to not kill them in return, you're probably going to. I remember the first run I played through this map, or not first run, but like the previous run I did during my current PMU run. Wolt was engaging Hugh through a wall in the zigzag tunnel without my knowledge. I completely didn't notice that he was fighting Hugh, and Hugh should have died like twice, but Wolt missed twice. And at first I thought he was just being classic Wolt and not being helpful at all, but as soon as I realized that it was Hugh that he was fighting, I was kind of grateful. I'll be honest, I was grateful to Wolt, I'll admit it. Just once I was grateful for him. Unfortunately that run got canned, And speaking of that run, I got some fantastic level ups that run. Lilina got a full level up, every single stat up, which was absolutely crazy. I actually captured it, I kept the footage for that one. And Lance got almost a full level up. I think he missed out on like skill or res or one of those stats, but he got everything that mattered basically. Which unfortunately neither of them repeat this attempt. Spoiler alert. But oh well, such is life. I would have crammed that little bit of footage on the end of this video just to show you the level ups, but considering the length of this video already, I decided not to. And here's Hugh. So Hugh's much like Farano in FE7, you have to pay for him, but he's much cheaper and you can actually haggle him down. He starts out at 10 grand. You can haggle him down to 5 grand, and that's what I intended to do. You see there I clicked no, but I accidentally fat fingered and fumbled and just clicked yes there, so I accidentally spent $3,000 extra on that member card right there, which sucks because I'll never use him. The reason that you can haggle him down, what that does is, the more you haggle him, the worse his base stats end up being. So if you buy him for the full 10 grand, he'll have okay stats for this point in the game. And if you haggle him all the way down to 5, his bases will be pretty terrible. But that wouldn't have mattered for the purposes of our run, of course, because we're not going to use him. So it's very unfortunate that I just fat fingered there and accidentally pressed yes when I meant to click no a few more times. But oh well, I don't think we're exactly short on cash, and we have plenty of things to sell, and definitely will have more by the end of this map considering all the chests. Speaking of the chests, the very first run of this map I did during the PMU run, I actually failed purely because I forgot to bring all the door keys I would need to get to all these chests. Specifically the one that has the night crest that I'll use to promote boars, which I absolutely was not giving up. So I had to restart for no other reason other than I forgot my keys, basically. So now that he's been recruited, Milady is going to ferry Roy back to the main group, and Sue is just going to carry Hugh because Hugh will die out here on his own. Saul will heal up Lance and send him into this hallway to grab Douglas's attention. If I open the door before Douglas is following somebody, I imagine he might try to loop back around. And that was a pretty good level up from Lance there. Yeah, that was basically all the stats you want. It's funny, prior to that level up, Lance would have done 0 damage with his iron sword to Douglas. But since he got that 1 point of strength, he actually did 1 damage with an iron sword, so his strength level up effectively put this map on a time limit. Not a very harsh one, but a time limit nonetheless. And I decided to move up Saul just to get 1 more round of healing off on Lance. He's already back to half basically. He's a tank, but he's not invincible. And I think if he's going to be engaging Douglas a whole lot, it's best to have him at full HP. Douglas does not have a very high chance to hit him, especially if he's using an iron sword, because Douglas is wielding an axe. But if he does hit, it does over 20 damage. So, not something I really wanted to risk. Gonna send him back for some healing. Kill that mercenary on the next turn, hopefully. And then leave Lance alone. Saul will just move back and eventually regroup with the rest of my units. Lilina's not silenced anymore, so she can afford to start healing. Marcus really needed that, he was pretty beat up. At the end of this corridor there's just a lone armor knight, so he's no problem, but on the other side of this tunnel there's a bunch of enemies, and there will be reinforcements appearing basically as soon as I get to the door as well. If you're playing this map smartly and you're actually trying to go for a low turn count, or even just not necessarily trying for a low turn count but just trying to go quickly, these reinforcements shouldn't be too much of a hassle for you. You should be able to get to this point of the map before they spawn and actually block off the forts that they come through, which is what I did on one of my prior attempts of this map. But unfortunately, because I am struggling with Lance over here to attract It's basically just because of Douglas. If Douglas was not on this map, I would have just gone and blocked off the forts. But if I wanted to get to them quickly enough to do that, then Douglas would have targeted the group that's blocking off the forts, and at that point it's basically impossible to progress around him without putting some of my units through some real trouble, more trouble than I was willing to put them through. Decent level up from Lilina there as well, basically the stats you want, magic speed, luck I think it was. So yeah, Douglas really made me have to shake up my strategy on this map. And the worst part is we're not even going to get to use him after he gets recruited. He has to live, and then on the next map he auto-recruits himself. Honestly, not even a good thing, because the map that he joins in is just filled with long-range magic and such that he's incredibly weak to. So, much like Cecilia, he gets a joining chapter that really does not show off his strengths. I remember the first time I played this game, basically I just had him carry Roy through the map and do nothing else. Rutger will finish off that Armor Knight for us, and now we can basically begin the bulk of combat on this map. The combat at the end of this corridor I did speed up just because there's a lot of it. It's not necessarily spammy or repetitious or disengaging in any way, but there is just a whole lot of it, and it doesn't really take place over wide enough of a field for me to want to leave it completely at neutral speed. So I decided to speed it up just a bit. I think I sped it up to about 2 times speed, roughly. Because there is a lot of it. It still lasts like 6 minutes even after being sped up by that much, so you know, you can imagine what it would have been like to sit through all of that if it wasn't sped up. So these enemies here, obviously the mages have 2 range, that fighter has a hand axe, that paladin has a javelin, obviously the mercenary doesn't have anything to attack at with 2 range, but there will be more mercenaries spawning, more hand axe fighters spawning, and from the top left there'll be a few mages as well, so just a whole bunch of 2 range is going to come down and crash onto these units I have at the very end of this tunnel, which at the start is going to be Garret, Marcus, Ward, and soon enough we'll be joined by Sue and Wolt. Here they come, there's the reinforcements. Luckily, comparatively speaking, if we want to compare this map to other maps that we've played through so far, the reinforcement spam is really not that bad. The enemies aren't that strong, and there's not that many waves of them. You know, if you want to compare it to something like Chapter 14, where they basically spawn from turn 7 to turn 18 or so, in this map I think it's about 3 turns that will have reinforcements spawning in, and they're not that tough, as I already mentioned. Of course reinforcements are just kind of annoying as a concept, but I mean, what can you do? It'll happen when it happens. Honestly, I think reinforcements in this game are designed more as hurry up tools than enemies you're actually supposed to fight. I think that's their intention. I think they're supposed to just say to the player, look, you're taking a bit too long to complete this map and I'm going to punish you for it. Next time, try to be a little bit quicker and you won't have to fight so many enemies. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned many times throughout this playthrough, playing quickly is not really something I can do too well with this squad, especially since I've missed out on both the boots and the warp staff. There's just a limit to the amount of quick strategies I can actually do feasibly. Like, for example, if I wanted to like skip out on all the chests in this map, if I didn't need them theoretically, and I had the warp staff, I could warp Rutger and Roy into the boss room, have Rutger kill Narshian, and then have Roy seize before I even have to leave this corridor. That's just an example of something I could do, of course. I'm not saying that's smart or something I would do, but it would definitely be a lot quicker than what we're able to accomplish now, which is, as you can see, basically just choke point strats. You know, we're employing the same strategies from all the way back in Chapter 4, where we just had our strongest units choke points and, you know, do the chip damage that they can, except now my units do slightly more damage than they used to. Although for the boars, that's a bit debatable. Boars is basically on the same level. He does get promoted this chapter though. I think he's the last member of my squad to be promoted. Just looking at them now, apart from Roy, who is a story promote and doesn't promote till chapter 20, I think he is the last unit to promote. Milady is currently not promoted either, but she will be by the end of this chapter as well. I actually meant to promote her at the very start of the chapter. As I mentioned last video, she's strength capped right now. And I did know this, and in my 2 previous attempts at this map, I promoted her at the very start of the chapter. But for some reason on this particular run I forgot to do that. I guess because I was trying a different strategy of having Lance go to the right. Still kind of dumb though. I do eventually remember at the very end when I compare her to her brother Zeiss, who is a wyvern at the top left of the screen. You may have seen him briefly appear earlier. I think he's already here. Might not be though, I wasn't really paying too much attention. Either way, he's another wyvern rider. His stats are slightly worse than Milady's at this point. Definitely not as fast. Almost as strong, but not quite. Definitely not after promotion. Decent defense. He's just a companion for Milady really. He's a lot worse in normal mode, I think. His bases in normal mode are really unimpressive. But here I think he could definitely get away with it. That's hard mode bonuses for you. They really save some units from being mediocre. But if you have Milady and you have like other flyers trained like Shanna and Tate, he's not really necessary. Of course you can use as many flyers as you want to. Flyers are great, so there's nothing wrong with having more flyers. But if you are trying to, for whatever reason, deploy a variety of different kinds of units, Milady is just better. Milady's better. Speaking of deploying flyers, the boss of this map is actually really interesting, Nashin. He comes with 2 stealable items, one of them being a blue gem, which of course is just cash, and the other one being a Delphi shield. It's a unique item, only he has it, you can't buy it, it's not found anywhere else in the game, and the only way to get it is to steal it from him. And what it does is makes any flyer holding it immune to effective damage from arrows. Lovely level up from Marcus there, HP, exactly what I wanted. I know I said at one point that I can't complain about HP level ups on Marcus anymore, so I won't, but you know I'm thinking it. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, the Delphi shield, very interesting item. I think that would be very nice to have on Milady. Her defense is already high enough that she can basically shrug off 1 or 2 shots from an archer, but with the Delphi shield equipped, she would be basically invincible to them. And since she doesn't really always have that much to carry, she could probably feasibly fit it into her inventory, unlike someone like Marcus or Lance, who is basically just loaded with different kinds of weapons at all times. So it's a real shame that we're not able to pick that up off him. I wish it was like a drop item that just got given to you if you killed him, but unfortunately not. The game's not nice enough to do that for us, so we're just gonna have to kill him again. Fun fact, during my first complete run of this game in normal mode, I also didn't steal the Delphi shield from him. Not because I didn't bring a thief, but because I just forgot to. I just didn't realize I could. So it looks like I'm never going to complete a run of this game where I actually have the Delphi shield. See Lance here, still just struggling with this Douglas guy. It's about at this point that I realize that he's going to eventually just catch up to the rest of my party at this rate. They're all still stuck at the end of this corridor. Granted, the enemies are definitely thinning out at this point. I think after this turn even, the reinforcements will be done. But instead of continuing to meet up with him, at this point I decide to just have Lance go all the way back and just distract Douglas for the rest of the map. I didn't mention it when it happened, but that level up from Garret there was pretty good, HP speed. I mean, it's good as far as, you know, a pre-promoted berserker is concerned. That HP stat is monstrous. I'm honestly liking Garret a lot. He has something over Ward, which is he has higher consistency, just because that crit chance really boosts his damage output a considerable amount, and it makes it so that even if he misses one of his hits, it's not always necessary, whereas sometimes with Ward, you really need him to hit those 2 hits, and when he has like a 60% chance to do either one, you know, it's just really stressful. So maybe consistency is not the right word, but he's just more capable of getting the kills that I need him to get in general. And of course the higher speed definitely helps him. He's obviously not fast, but he is at that sort of threshold where some enemies are definitely going to stop doubling him. Pardon me, I just yawned. I'm very tired. If you've got a keen eye, you may have noticed there's some mannequins on this map. One of them is at the very top of the screen right now, and the other one is guarding the chests at the top right of the screen, which I don't think we've had a good look at yet. These guys may look very scary, as mannequins tend to be, but they're actually completely stationary unless you get right into their range, which is directly besides them in any direction. They won't move. So you can freely just pass by them, go above them, go around them. There's no reason not to, because they don't drop anything, and they're just terrifyingly tough opponents. You know, unless you want to feed them to one of your mages, which I guess is fair enough, you could do that. They don't have 2 range, so you could definitely do that if you wanted to. But if you've got no one in particular that's worth feeding experience to, it's probably best to just avoid them. They don't really pose a threat to you. For some reason, this bishop that's accompanying, I almost called him Dressel again, Douglas. The bishop that's accompanying Douglas has long since run out of anything to do damage with, but he's still just sticking to Lance like glue. He's just following me around. I think he wants to be friends, but at some point, unfortunately, I shove a lance through his chest, so I don't think he ever fulfills that dream of his. Unfortunately, you know, that's not what we do here. This is a war. We're not here to make friends. Here I just really want to kill this paladin, so I decided to try and crit him, which I do because it's Rutger. I didn't really want to waste anyone else on that. And Wolt could technically have gotten that kill on that mage as well, but I figure it might just be nice to get rid of the already weakened bishop. And send Marcus up instead. Marcus has some pretty decent res even now at this point in the game, whereas Wolt I think has like 3 or 4 res maybe if he's lucky. So as I already mentioned when we first saw her, that's something Igreen has way over Wolt. Her res is actually really good. But hey, other archers being better than Wolt is not exactly news. So at this point of the map, we're a little bit more than halfway through it. But honestly, in terms of actual content, there's not a whole lot left. It's mostly cleaning up these stragglers, killing the boss, and then getting all the treasure. And of course, getting all the treasure I have just sort of edited down so that we're only seeing what I actually received from the chests as opposed to watching the turns. So really unfortunate unit placement happened on my end that cost me way more turns than I really had any right to spend on this map. Of course this map doesn't have a turn limit in terms of reaching that gaiden chapter, so it doesn't really matter how long I spend here other than, you know, being able to say that I beat a map quickly. But who cares about that, right? Sorry about that noise you hear in the background, any thumping. There are children in the house and they make a lot of goddamn noise all the time. Lilina being the ever reliable healer. I'm so spoiled by her. Every time I heal with Saul, and it doesn't just immediately refill my unit's health all the way to full, I wonder why it doesn't. Because every time Lilina heals, it's just like a refill, just top me up. It's great. Decided to get rid of that mage with Marcus just because he's kind of in the way. I figured I'd be able to get the other guys with my other units. Rutger makes mincemeat out of that merc. And there's a few more mercs left. Unfortunately, I can't really get anyone to him, except Milady, I think. Milady can reach. But the others, not so much. And I'm not going to fight those guys with either of my axe wielders, because my axe wielders will just get shredded. So yeah, we'll send up Milady, it seems, just to be nearby. Somehow I still don't notice the Elysian whip just sitting in her inventory. I don't notice her capped strength there either when I just flick through her. Guess I wasn't looking for it. Can't believe I spent $3 grand extra on goddamn Hugh, man. That's just an unfortunate fat finger fuck up right there. Nice crit from Lance there. I really don't need to be killing any of these enemies. In fact, it should have been a priority for me to just get to a bush and just have the evasion rates carry me through the rest of the map, which I do at some point, but I have not learned my lesson as of right now. At some point in my brain, I was just thinking to myself, if I can kill everyone except Douglas, then I won't really be in any danger. But that doesn't happen. And see, that priest there, despite being completely unarmed, has actually blocked me in and prevented me from getting to a bush this turn. Which is, you know, clever play on his end. He'll lose his life for it later. But bravo. Just using a longbow here on Sue to whittle down this guy. Level up for her. Pardon me. Really good one. I thought she was going to go all the way as well. But not quite. She got all the stats that mattered. Fortunately, Milady can't double this guy because mercenaries are fast, but she will crit. I think, was that a 1% crit? Looking back on it, I think that was a 1% crit. It was very low, whatever it was. So that's impressive, well done. And Rutger will get his crit here. I guess he wants to be praised as well. Well done, Rutger. These guys are actually kind of scary. The one that Lilina's facing right now is a promoted sniper with a silver bow. And you can see right there, he does a lot of damage. But I decided to go for it with the Lilina anyway. I'll take out this guy with Wolt first. I don't think Wolt dies to that guy either. Wolt has decent defense. And I have insurance. Obviously Marcus can pick up Lilina if she missed either of those hits. But that doesn't happen. So we're all good at this part of the map, basically. There's just a few more armor knights and such to worry about. But other than that, the map is mostly clear at this point, so you're probably wondering why there's so much time left of the video. And that's because this particular section of the video is not sped up, and that's about it. Just because there's a little bit of extra combat, and I kind of do want to show every bit of combat that happens. I don't really want to skimp out on any of that, just so you know exactly how my units are doing, exactly what any of their level ups might be, etc. Again, apologies for any noise you can hear outside of where I'm recording this. Can't do much about that. Hopefully the game noise is loud enough for you. Looking here for a door key. Another reason why this map took so long is just because I kept misplacing my keys. On my first run, I didn't even bring them, and on this run, they're just never on the unit that I want them to be on. I unlocked this one with Marcus, thinking, oh yeah, I'm smart, but it turns out Marcus is going to end up way closer to the other door that needed to be opened than the person who has the door key needed for this one, which was Milady, whom I didn't even know had one at this point. Completely forgot about it. And also, Roy has all my chest keys, whereas I needed 5 of them to be on the other side of the map soon. So there's Zeiss, however you want to pronounce his name. I just decided to test the water here with the mana key, see how badly Rutger dies. Didn't bring a Wormslayer because I didn't think I'd need it, and I don't need it. I wasn't ever going to fight that mana key, but I was just seeing if I could. Get some healing in with Saul, because I'm going to kill that armor knight with him. Skill speed from Saul there. Very nice. I don't really need him to have particularly high magic, although it would help for healing. And yeah, at this point with Lance, I thought about sending him all the way back, but instead I'm going to opt to bring him to the bushes. I think that would give him way better survivability, and it would give the rest of my team a lot more breathing room. And I'll elixir up. The one good thing that Hugh does, apart from provide that member card, is he has some elixirs. So that actually definitely came in handy this map. For this particular scenario where I have to have Lance just be a distraction for the entire round, the entire map. More healing in with Lilina there. Kind of a waste of a heal staff, but I have a few, so I really don't mind. Not much to do with Hugh. I'm basically just going to plant him in the middle of this square room. No more reinforcements are coming, so he's completely safe. Here comes the Armor Knight. Garret has a hammer on right now, but it doesn't really matter. He'd probably run one round with an iron axe or come close to it. Level up for Lance here as well. HP luck. This guy is approaching the amount of HP that Garret has, man. I swear, this guy has so much HP. I know he got fed an angelic robe, but even so, that's a lot of HP. So at this point, we're starting to skip some over the map. Basically skipping straight to chests and such, or important moments. This first one has a berserk staff. Don't know if I'll ever get to use that in any proper sense. But I guess we'll see. We'll see what I can do with that. Iron sword. I actually used my iron sword on Douglas so much this map that it broke. I think that iron sword was close to undamaged before the start of this map, so they've been going at it for a while. Next chest here. Unfortunately, there are going to be some pauses before I open chests, because I was just checking what's in them, just so that I knew which ones I didn't need to open. Gonna get a Knight's Crest here, and finally promote Boars. By technicality, he will not be the last promoted member of our squad. That'll go to Milady, who promotes later in the chapter. But in terms of who's been with us the longest without being promoted, Boars was definitely the last one. So at level 18 he'll promote, and wow, those are some pretty pathetic stats. Outside of defense, which is particularly high, he's pretty poor. I mean, 16 strength is okay. You'd hope for a bit more. I get his growth in strength is not fantastic, but you would hope for a little bit more than 16 from a promoted unit at level 18. Promoted Armor Knight at that. But hey, you know, it's not exactly low compared to other members of my squad, I guess, so I'll take it. The 22 defense will be nice. The 5 move will be incredible. He now moves as fast as Roy does. I wish I had gotten him those boots so badly. I wish I had those boots. He would have been maybe even useful if I had been able to do that, but alas, my luck was not with me in that desert chapter. I was just glad to be done with it, to be honest with you. So here's Narshan. Had a look at his Delphi shield right there. Of course, because he has it, Wolt can do absolutely nothing to him. So I decided to see what Rutger can do. Rutger doesn't actually face any crit from this man. With that rune sword, he has no crit. In case you don't know, the rune sword is basically like a Nosferatu sword. You will heal the damage you do with it. It does magic based damage, I believe, and it can attack and retaliate at 2 range. So it's very similar to a light brand, although it's pretty much just better than a light brand. I don't know if the hit is the same, probably not. But there's no way to get the rune sword, I don't think. Can't steal weapons in this game, and as far as I'm aware, there's none that you can buy or find. So you may as well consider it his personal weapon. Get a hero crest here. As I already mentioned, all the units in my squad are promoted, so that's just cash right there. The reason I got that, even though I didn't technically need it, is just because promotion items are pretty expensive, and it would be kind of a waste of money to not pick that one up in particular. Oh, apologies. You're just gonna crit that Armor Knight in the face. I used a hammer to weaken him a bit, and he should have been killed. He would get one rounded normally, but Garret missed, so I said, nah, may as well not waste a use of the hammer when I could just use a regular old iron axe. Now Zeiss and Milady are brother and sister, yet somehow through this wall, Zeiss can't see that he's throwing a javelin at his flesh and blood family. So Milady is just gonna have to like bear with having javelins just chucked at her turn after turn while she struggles to break the wall and show Zeiss, hey, it's me, your sister, don't shoot. As for why I'm recruiting Zeiss, honestly, I don't know. I don't really know why I went out of my way to recruit him, especially when Milady has one of the door keys that I needed to open the door on literally the opposite side of the map to her. So honestly, no idea why I recruited him. He's not story essential, he doesn't unlock any guidance, I'm not using him, and he doesn't particularly come with anything interesting. So just kind of a because I can moment there. Rescue staff there, that's going to be great. The rescue staff is nowhere near as good as like the warp staff. It's an inverse warp staff basically. It warps people to you apart rather than away from you. So it's not nearly as useful, but I'm sure it'll find some application at some point. I was sending Wolt to the left thinking that he could grab the the door key from Milady and bring it all the way back over to where Lilina basically is right now, but then I realized, hold on, Milady's a flyer and she has way more movement than Wolt, so there'd be no point doing that. Magic luck def from Lilina, pretty good. As long as that magic keeps going up, I will be 100% satisfied. Nothing else really matters on Lilina, although she actually does have a lot of speed at this point. And on this turn, I decide to leave Rutger in range of the boss. He can't die even in 2 rounds of combat, so I could have initiated here if I wanted to, but I decided to let him attack first because of that Nosferatu effect. I didn't want it to just waste any damage I'd managed to do to him. Douglas still going strong down there. Hasn't really taken that much damage. Although I think Lance got hit once. So Rutger's gonna double crit there and get this completely blank level up. Look at this dude. He's so good. He doesn't even need your level ups. He says take your extra stats and shove them. Get out my face. I don't want them. So he's not only gonna double crit and not get any level ups out of it, but then he's gonna crit again and then almost with exact damage finish off Nashin next turn without getting hit even once. So Rutger's just an absolute badass, absolute unit. What a mad lad. Doesn't even need stats. Who needs stats? Who needs stats when you have crit? Not him. Not Rutger, that's for sure. So that's basically the map at this point. The video is almost over, as you can see. We're nearing the very end. After Narcian goes down and Zeiss is recruited, there will basically just be a montage of the items that I collected from the chests. The items I didn't collect, I believe, were a mend staff and 5,000 coins. And it makes you wonder why I picked up the hero crest to sell it rather than the straight 5,000 cash. And that's a good question now that you ask it. Pretend that I absolutely thought of it and I had a plan. Because I absolutely did. I definitely have a plan for that hero crest. 100%. So down goes Nashin. He died as he lived, pathetically. And the rest of the video will just be a short little montage of the items that I picked up. I believe there's a Brave Lance, some sort of staff, and before we go, we're going to recruit her. We're going to promote Milady. I've finally realized that, hold on, she's been sitting at cap for like the whole level, so good thing she didn't do much. Look at those stats, this girl is a beast. 17 speed, 19 defense. She's almost as bulky as Boars, except she can fly, has more strength, and way more speed. She's just a flying fortress, really. Such a good unit. That's the other thing we got. We got a bolting. That's probably going to be quite useful, actually. Lilina will do a lot of damage with that, I imagine. Almost wrapping up here. 2 more items to go. Again, this pause is simply because I was checking to see what the chests had in them offline. Or rather, online. So that one had a Brave Lance. And this next and final one is going to have a Restore Staff. Which is nice, but I already had like 3. So that's the map. Thanks for bearing with my tired ass commentary and this long ass map. And I'll see you next time.